warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. When the sheikh is a crook, the crowd is also crooks. They want payments for their camera work. Subhanallah. So, أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الحمد لله والصلاة على النبي الأمي. That's very interesting. Whatever we are reading from, that's what I was thinking about today on the way back. Although I didn't even look at this carefully today, but for some reason I wanted to talk about this anyways. The saying by the Imam and the Sheikh, his name is Ibn Ataullah Iskandari, he says, مَنْ لَمْ يُقْبِلَ عَلَى اللَّهِ بِمُلَاطَفَاتِ الْإِحْسَانِ قِيدَ إِلَيْهِ بِسَلَاسِلِ الْإِمْتِحَانِ. Whoever doesn't turn to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala through the kind favors of Allah, then he will be dragged to Allah through tests. So whoever is not able to turn towards Allah in the kind favors of Allah, then he will be dragged towards Allah in the chains of tests. There's a hadith afterwards, Ajiba Rabbuka, your Lord is amazed at people who will be taken to Jannah in chains or shackles. So your Lord is amazed at people who will be dragged to Jannah in chains and shackles. So there could be so much different interpretation of that hadith. So some of the earlier fuqaha, they might have made a interpretation that what that means is people that came into Islam outwardly, there was a lot of Muslims had too much power, so they said, whatever, let's join. So initially they felt a little force, but afterwards they got comfortable with the Islam and they fell in love with Islam. So there was a force that brought them to Islam, but now they're comfortable with Islam. So they kind of came into Islam with chains. Or somebody that was a prisoner of war, POW, prisoners of war. So if somebody brought prisoners of war to a Muslim place, for example, there's a hadith where a certain tribe leader, he was tied in the mosque for 3 days. Very powerful man, but he was caught in a war. So he was brought as a prisoner of war. Nabi Sallallahu told everyone to take care of him, or told some people to take care of him. And every 3 days, Nabi Sallallahu would come to him. All those 3 days, he came to him and asked him, how is it going to be? And the guy was such a powerful guy, he would say the same sentence every day. He will say, I'm a man of virtue. If you're nice to me, I'll pay you back. But if you kill me, I got a lot of people that'll fight for my blood. So he was a big shot. He knew it. So he goes, I'm a man of honor. If you be nice to me, I'll be nice to you. But if you kill me, there's a lot of revenge takers for me. All 3 days say the same thing. And Nabi said the same question. So it's such a cute thing. And then Nabi came on 3rd day, said, free him. That was the verdict, free him. So they freed him, he walked out, he went, took a shower, came and goes on to be a Muslim. Because he saw the mosque for 3 days, he just fell in love with how they were acting in the mosque. So basically he's in jail for 3 days, and the behavior in that place was so angelic that by the time he walked out, he's like, I have to become Muslim. He just took a shower, came back right away and said, I want to become Muslim. And I think he's the person that said, I didn't want to become Muslim in chains because I didn't want anybody to say that, he probably became Muslim because he was chained. So I wanted to become Muslim after you opened my chains, but although my mind was already made up before when the chains were already on. I wanted to be like you people. So that would be another interpretation of the hadith. But how the author translated the hadith was different. He just said, if you're not coming to Allah in good times, He'll pull you towards Him in hard times. Now the big question comes up. Like, why would this happen? Why would Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala put difficulties on a person? Because Allah wants the person to end up in Jannah, but the person is not doing enough Jannati actions. So now, either Allah leaves him and says, let him do whatever he wants. Or Allah makes his life such, like programs his life such, that He makes him come back to religion. I'll give you an example. One of my younger brothers, he's not finding job. So I was thinking, like, how do I get him to work? So I was gonna go to an employer and say, I will give you money to give him, but please let him start working here. And I'll give you the money to pay my brother. But so I was trying to program his life in a way to benefit him, but I was programming his life for him.
For him it was a test.
For him,
Problem.
yeah. So, just like how this would happen to us when we have teenage children, when they start messing around, and you're thinking, I could let him go do whatever he wants, or I can make sure his life goes well. So I can be reckless and say, let him do whatever he wants, let him destroy his life. He'll come back one day. Or you can be concerned about him and try to fix him and bring him back sooner and sooner and sooner. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is a very strong king who is not in need of us. He can just leave us and say, yeah, let him sin, let him go to hell. When he's done stressing and having a lot of problems, he'll come back after 50 years. Or I can make sure I give him a little bit of pain right now, let him come back sooner, so he doesn't have to go through so much difficulties, and he'll have a higher place in Jannah. And there's a hadith that mentions that when a person is not living according to the ranks that are written for him in Jannah, then Allah gives him difficulties. So for example, all three of us here, if Allah has destined for us Jannah number 37 out of the 100, 37th level, which is not number one, meaning not the lowest level, but quite a high level, 37th. But we're living like level 25 right now. And we're not improving. In the last few months, we haven't improved much. So now Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gives us a cold, gives us a fever, gives us like pain in the back, pain in here, trouble at work. So now all that extra headache pushes it into level number 37. So now every night you go to sleep, there's more good deeds because you did more sabr. So this is where the concept of voluntary hardship versus involuntary hardship comes in. So either we commit to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and put difficulties upon ourselves and say, I'm not going to do this sin, I'm not going to do this, I'm not going to do this sin, I'm going to be hard on myself. Or we're messing around with the sin, so Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has to make ways for us to become religious. Although we had no plans. So somebody goes, for example, to a club, but then on the way there he gets a car crash. So he comes back, but because of all the pain he went through, all his sins are forgiven now. So you see how he's not committing to come to Salat for Isha, he went to the club, but then he had a car crash. So now he got so much rewards for having sabr and not swearing and trusting Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and coming back and saying, it's okay, I'll continue with my religious life. So voluntary, meaning you had your own intention to be religious, or Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala made it such that you had to become religious through sabr and so on. So
if you do voluntary ibadat, but you will be still tested.
That would be like the prophets, where the person is already a good person, he's already making it to a good level of Jannah. But further difficulties raise the person further in Jannah. So that's why somebody asked the Prophet ﷺ, who are the most tested people? He said the prophets. So that would not be because they're falling behind, it's just that Allah wants them at the highest levels possible. And I want to put a disclaimer here. It's so hard to decide if what's happening in our lives is a punishment because we sin too much, or is it Allah raising us from one rank to another. So either way, just translate it as Allah is trying to make your life better. If you're going to think, oh, was that because of my sins that Allah is pushing me and making me go through difficulties, it's going to confuse you so much. So don't overthink it, just do istighfar in case we were sinning, do istighfar and just move on. And just enjoy the sabr moments in your life. And remember, sabr is the solution when there is no solution. Sabr is the solution in any given situation when there is no other solution. So sabr is the solution. That's what the hadith says. There's nothing more vast than sabr, and there's nothing more better than sabr. The sabr is when you say, whatever the situation, I'm okay, I'm fine. You're not saying you're happy, you're saying I'm fine, I'm okay. I can deal with this. So that becomes a solution when there is no solution. And that's why the hadith called it more vast. Because when your sabr is so much, any problem can fall under it. Like let's talk about Imam Ahmad bin Hanbal. He knew the Quran is the words of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. But the politicians of that time were saying, no, this is a creation of Allah. It's not the words of Allah. Because if it's the words of Allah, it's part of Allah.
Mm-hmm.
And if it's just a creation of Allah, then it's not part of Allah. So that was going to be a big debate forever. But that was the beginning stage of it. So he had to be very strong on it. But the politicians took him to jail and beat him up a lot. And they would have people come and whip him very, very, very hard. So he had no solution. So his solution was sabr. So he did extreme amounts of sabr. And he always forgave the people that tortured him too. So sabr, that's all it is, man. Like if you can conquer sabr, nothing is too much for you, for us. If we can have sabr and patience, then there's nothing too much. Everything is okay, it's doable. Once our sabr is less, that's when every problem becomes too big. But if my sabr is bigger than my problem, can it drown me? It can't. If my sabr is less than my problem drowns me, it gives me depression. That's what depression is, when your problem is too much and you cannot comprehend it. And it drowns us. But if we flip it over, like an umbrella, if the umbrella is smaller than the person, is it going to keep him dry? No, the umbrella has to be bigger than the person. So our sabr has to be more than our problems. So once it is more, then you're done, mashallah. Any situation, you're like, oh, my sabr is more than my problems, I'm fine. So let's ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for the understanding of the difficulties that we go through in our life, and ask Allah to give us good amount of sabr, although we're not doing what the hadith tells us, where the hadith says do not ask Allah for difficulties. We're not asking Allah to test us. No, we're asking Allah for ease, very comfortable ride. Afiyah. Afiyah means like an easy life, well-being. So we ask Allah to give us afiyah, well-being, but if difficulty comes, we ask Allah to give us a lot of sabr. There's an ayat that says, oh Allah, shower upon us patience and steadfastness. Oh Allah, shower upon us patience. So we can ask Allah, oh Allah, give me a lot of patience and sabr so I can stay strong in my difficulties. Allah give us tawfiq. وآخر دعوانا الحمد لله رب العالمين وصلى الله على النبي الأمي.